Hello and welcome back to the show. John Pollock here with John Ramdeen and Robin Black coming out of the UFC's first card of 2017. It was in Phoenix, Arizona, and it featured Yair Rodriguez stopping BJ Penn in the second round. It was a very difficult fight for any longtime BJ Penn fan to watch, but sadly, this is a sport, guys, that it doesn't tend to lend to happy stories later in guys' careers. And BJ Penn, we knew going in, this was an extremely difficult fight for BJ Penn, for a comeback fight against a monster in Yair Rodriguez.
Yeah, I think it really dawned on me that this was a possibility. Robin and I were in Montreal on Friday calling TKO, and we had the opportunity to call a fight between two debuting fighters, this young kid, Tony Laramie, who had just turned 18 years old, and the younger brother of UFC lightweight Kevin Lee, Keith Lee. And the stuff that these two kids did over the course of 15 minutes after having no professional experience, and we talked to guys that have fought, serious names and trainers of champions of the past, UFC cutmen, and they're like, these guys, this is their first fight, and it looks like they had 10 professional fights. So it starts penetrating your brain that, wait a second, is this really across the board? And then you're watching the undercard, and you see Sergio Pettis, and we've been following Sergio Pettis for a long time.
We called his
first fight, so we knew what his potential. He just hadn't lived up to that potential. And then you see the magic that he can display inside of the cage, and I'm like, okay, this seems like it's a real possibility. The technology is across the board, and BJ Penn, he's the old guard who just cannot compete in today's landscape. In that second era, the 2.0 of mixed martial arts fighter, I think they're a dying breed.
Yeah, and people were saying to me that BJ had lost a step. Probably didn't. Probably the same. Just everything else has elevated. Everybody has just stampeded past that. And it was tough to watch. When you look at what the new guys are doing, a couple of years back, we were starting to anticipate this change. We were seeing it take shape. We were calling the movement. That's over now. This is about the space, the manipulation of the space between fighters and their weapons and their chins and parts of their body. There's a sensitivity and an understanding and a manipulation about the space between you. And it's very hard to learn. BJ Penn's nervous system has been trained a certain way for so long. He knew what to expect. He had the right idea. Watch those first 2.5 minutes. Always moving forward, trying to get the body lock, taking the spinning stuff off of the calf and the back of the knee. First 2.5 minutes, you saw the plan. Greg knows it. BJ knew it. They knew how to train it, and he was kind of doing it in the gym, no doubt about it. But his nervous system has been trained to fight a certain way all his life. Once you get in the shit a little bit, you go back to what you do, and what you used to do cannot handle this modern type of fighter.
Is it impossible to retrain your muscle memory? Is that something that would just going to take too much time for these guys to unlearn and relearn?
It's very hard, and I will guarantee you BJ knew exactly what to expect and was prepared for it and was handling it in sparring. Greg knows what's going on. BJ knows what's going on. They know. But once you get into the reality, you will eventually revert back. Your body will do what it will do. Swimmers will swim, and yoga guys will yoga, and weightlifters will weightlift, and a certain type of fighter will fight a certain way. And this is an analogy we've been using for a while. I don't remember where I got it. We didn't invent it, but you didn't invent the light bulb, whether we say it was Edison or Tesla, whoever. The light bulb wasn't invented by the constant improvement of the candle. You didn't make a better and better and better candle, and one day you had a light bulb. Light bulbs come along, candles are obsolete, and that's the game. And there's more of this coming up. If you can't fight this way, if you don't understand that manipulation of range, and it's all changing so dramatically and so fast. We used to call it 4 ranges. There's already 8 now. And there'll be 16 soon.
There's probably actually more. It's just they haven't been discovered.
Every millimeter is a subtle change in range. And how do you play with it rhythmically? And there was a million things that Yair did. He slid back to plant that back foot, which became the kick. It's nothing to him. But BJ's never trained that way. BJ's never played with somebody playing with range with him. When Matt Hughes was going to fight him, they walked out, and there was the same way praying mantises or cobras do their thing. There's sort of this agreement between fighters. We're going to walk up, we get into range, Matt Hughes is going to throw a jab, I'll slip, and I'll counter it. But Yair's not going to agree to that range anymore, and neither are any of these young guys. They all have an understanding and a sensitivity towards the manipulation of the space between you, and the old guys don't.
I feel as well, you watch a BJ Penn in this entire comeback over the last year, some were saying that maybe this was too difficult an opponent for this return fight. BJ hasn't fought in 2.5 years, but I think to your point, Robin, it's just the game is at a certain level. Like, you could insert another hungry young featherweight that is 23 years old, and you're still taking on 38-year-old BJ Penn. You're trying to you're asking a whole lot when you're fighting at this top level, and it takes a performance like that on a Sunday night where you see just where the entire level of the featherweight division is.
You know, Ben Saunders would easily beat Royce Gracie of the first time. Easily. There's no comparison.
Maybe in jiu-jitsu even.
100% in jiu-jitsu. 100%. He would beat that Royce Gracie. And did that Royce Gracie change over time? Somewhat, but he became a much better candle. It's different now, and it'll always be different. And history isn't something that happened a long time ago. History is right now. And it's always changing, and everything is always changing. And it's one of the great things that martial arts teaches us, and like so many things. But BJ now realizes that it has changed. But he understood it. That's the thing. He knows exactly what we're talking about. This isn't a surprise to him. Sure, it's not a surprise. But once you go in, his body's been trained a certain way for so long, his nervous system becomes the BJ that he used to be.
But to John's point, maybe they shouldn't be throwing 22-year-olds and 24-year-olds.
He wants to be the champion.
I understand that, but again, we're talking about, there's certain realities here, and maybe the UFC should be stepping in and say, I don't know if you should be going in there with 20-year-olds. You're closer to 40 than you are to 30.
The reality of the situation is, if there are guys at that age who do feel still competitively fighting is something you want to do, the UFC is really not the promotion for it. Yeah. There are other organizations there where you can have fights that are not going to tax you to this level, where you are taking on the hungriest next crop, and you can afford to find fighters that, hey, this is built around BJ Penn and nostalgia, but the UFC featherweight division is not that avenue for a 38-year-old.
Uriah Faber and Brad One Punch Pickett was such a great fight. There are still some of those, but I mean, you really want to go back and make a run for a title. Yair Rodriguez, is he top 10? He's right around there. Sure. But I mean, there's more and more. What's the 20th guy? What would that have been like? The game is very different. You put it well. If you go back, and we'll probably show you the replay here on Fight Network, but you can find it on our friends at Fight Pass as well. Go back and watch TKO we just called on the weekend. It's different. The game has changed. And if you are one of the old coaches not thinking that way, your whole team is in jeopardy. And if you're one of the old fighters not thinking that way, you're in jeopardy. It is different. It's being played differently. And again, BJ understood what to do. He knew at range this guy was going to kick him apart. So those first 2.5 minutes, watch him. He's taking kicks and he's getting hurt with them, but he's moving forward to try to get the body lock, because that's the assignment. After he started moving back, he was a dead dog.
Final thing, guys. Do you feel that it was imperative on the corner to not send Penn out for that second round? Because that was a topic that was debated heavily, and it's not in the culture of MMA that you don't answer the bell, and yet you saw those 5 minutes. This blueprint was written in 5 minutes, and I don't think we needed to see that final 24 seconds. Maybe for BJ Penn, he wanted that conclusive finish, but a corner does have a certain responsibility, and I don't know if we needed more after that.
I disagree.
Arguably 10-8 round.
Yeah, I disagree, because if he gets the body lock and gets on top of him, the whole thing is different. Everything that, my rib is sore and my forearms are killing me, but now I'm on top of this guy. And we got to give him the chance to get in there and do that. It didn't take much head trauma.
If you play the if game, then you never have to stop a fight.
And I don't know that I would, based on damage, but BJ wasn't damaged compared to his lifetime.
But look I'm with you. I'm a BJ Penn guy. But let's just say it wasn't BJ Penn. Let's just say it was some other guy that took the level of beating that BJ Penn did. It felt like he was a sitting duck, that it was a foregone conclusion that was going to happen in round 2. And even John McCarthy, because he knows BJ Penn's history, if that was any other fighter, he would have jumped in there sooner. But it's like, okay, BJ, I know you can do it. I think you can do it. I think, okay, fine, I got to get in there.
John's not supposed to be thinking that way, and I don't think he would say that he was. But there are two aspects, two conversations happening simultaneously. Should we stop this fight because of the damage? Absolutely not. We see guys take 100 times more damage than that. So absolutely no way we should stop that because of the damage. The second one, should we stop this fight because we don't think he has a chance? That's a different conversation, and I disagree. He gets the body lock, the whole thing changes. So he's not all that damaged by today's standards, and he absolutely has a chance. So if anyone is having that conversation, continue the conversation for sure, but please consider those two points.
All right, that's going to wrap it up. Yair Rodriguez stops BJ Penn 24 seconds of the second round in Phoenix, Arizona.
We love you, BJ Penn.